Hello again, I am Blunty, and in theory, I'm back. In theory, in about 4 or 5 hours, there's going to be a technician arriving here to finally hook up the internet in my new little apartment here after a big move and being royally screwed over by the ISP. Don't even get me started. You guys know what it's like dealing with ISPs, right? It was a nightmare. Anyway. So I've been struggling on for a couple of weeks now and using nothing but mobile internet and exceeding my bandwidth cap now, so it's very, very slow mobile internet. Hooray for that. And I was trolling through Twitter yesterday as it goes through its death throes, and I noticed Starfield was trending. I was like, oh, why is Starfield trending? I'm very interested in Starfield. Why is Starfield trending? Is there new news? Has there been a new leak? Is there something interesting to talk about? And it wasn't anything specific. It was just a bunch of people talking in general about how excited they are about Starfield now that it's officially 60 days away from release. Well, 58 days away from release as I record this, I suppose, and 55 or something if you've got the early access thing, because in any case, as I was scrolling through, I came across a couple of tweets that were talking about Starfield versus PlayStation in various contexts, because of course Starfield is an Xbox/PC Microsoft exclusive essentially. Hi Linux gamers, good luck! And as I was scrolling, I came across tweets like, this is a nothing tweet, this is just farming interactions tweet, but it is an interesting question all the same, which is why it works well as a farming interaction tweet. And it's just like, what is your most anticipated game for later this year? Because as we're rolling in to the second part of this year, we're about to hit that big wave of games coming into the holiday season where this stuff gets really, really exciting to be a gamer again, because right now, not so much. So, Spider-Man 2, obviously the big PlayStation exclusive for this holiday season, I suppose. And then you've got Mario Brothers Wonder, which is Nintendo's big flagship game for this holiday season, and oh my god, does that look wonderful. And then of course you've got Starfield, which is Xbox/PC users' big flagship game, or one of at least. So my first question to you is, obviously, what is your most anticipated game? It doesn't have to be one of those ones. There are plenty of other games coming out. There's lots of exciting games coming out. But those tend to be the big flagship, system exclusives that people are sort of comparing against one another, because we can't get away from console war crappery no matter where we walk. Personally speaking, I'm more excited for Starfield than I am for Spider-Man 2, despite loving the original Spider-Man game on the PlayStation and the Miles Morales game that came out that was, a DLC turned into a big game, a bigger game, much, much smaller than the original game, but whatever it is, the third Spider-Man game, Spider-Man 2, the official sequel, whatever. Very, very excited about that, because that game is excellent. One of the best games I've ever played. And I've said this many, many times over the years. But I am more excited about Starfield. And I'll tell you why after we do the thing I'm about to do, because I want to read you an article from metro.uk.co whatever. And it's not a very well written article because it comes from a user. It's one of their user submitted articles. I don't know why anyone's still doing that in this day and age, but it reads like a whiny Reddit post of some 14-year-old kid who hasn't been around very long, but it brings up some interesting perspectives nonetheless. So let's have a read through this and talk about it a little bit. Then I'm going to tell you why I'm more excited about an untested, unknown Bugthesda Fest versus a game that I know is going to be excellent. Because at this point it's really, really hard to fuck up the formula that they've built for Spider-Man. Insomniac are doing incredible work. But Starfield. So in this article entitled "Starfield is going to beat Spider-Man 2 this winter," obviously it replace winter for summer if you live on the other side of the planet, the entire other half of the planet that experiences summer when the other bit's experiencing winter. But this is a UK published thing, so we can excuse that little bit of ignorance for once. Starfield is going to beat Spider-Man 2 this winter. Readers feature. So they begin. A reader examines the fan reaction to Spider-Man 2 and Starfield and concludes that Xbox is well ahead of PS5 in terms of current hype levels. Really? They're not talking about personal experience, they're talking about industry-wide. They reckon Starfield has way more hype. They might be right. There is more chatter about Starfield than Spider-Man 2, at least more positive chatter. As a PlayStation 5 owner that doesn't have an Xbox Series X, suspicious already when an article starts like that, but they're siding with the Xbox side of things because it often feels like, false flag operations, I guess. I'm happy to admit the Xbox Game Showcase was far more entertaining and informative than PlayStation 1. In fact, anything Sony has done in what seems like forever. Some, perhaps even many, of the games may end up as disappointment, but the showcase did what was supposed to do and hyped everyone. I wish an editor had gone through this and fixed up some of the grammatical mistakes, but they just printed it as is because laziness, I guess. Hyped everyone up and got them interested in the Xbox, even if they had previously dismissed it. Did they though? Did they? I mean, I've seen a few posts on social media about PlayStation players buying a PC more recently for some exciting upcoming PC titles, including Starfield, and refusing to buy an Xbox because, well, obviously it's not going to be as good on Xbox because you can buy a much more powerful PC. Although that said, I did see someone being mocked mercilessly by many people whose, previous Twitter posts were all about, hey, PlayStation Starfield's gonna suck and blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, I bought a new PC for Baldur's Gate 3. And people are going, you actually bought it for Starfield, didn't you? And haha, the irony of you buying that, because it's weaker than the Xbox Series S, because they did buy a fairly mid PC to play their PC games on while they're bolstering about PlayStation. So it's just infighting crap, and I just thought it was funny anyway. For myself, it hasn't pushed me into wanting to get an Xbox console yet, for the simple reason that I much prefer fantasy settings to sci-fi. Especially this kind of more realistic sci-fi. However, it's obvious to me as a fan of Skyrim that this is going to be a great game, and it reminds me a bit of Mass Effect. As I didn't play much, perhaps that is a false impression of the scope, and customization definitely seems great. Really, editors, please, just fix the grammar. Make it more readable. By comparison, Spider-Man 2 is a game I am interested in, and I initially considered a day one buy, but I found the footage at PlayStation Showcase to be very underwhelming, as did a lot of people actually. I know I'm not the only one to think this, judging by the online discussions, and I'm not sure whether it was just a bad demo/trailer, or if the game itself is destined to disappoint. The thing about the trailer that they showed off, it was more about showing off what was different from the last games than showing the game in a complete sense. They highlighted the changes that have been made between what you've already played and what's coming in new, because that's the interesting part about this. You already know you like the other bits of the game because you played it twice already. I mean, I played through Spider-Man and Miles Morales twice each, and I've really enjoyed them both times. Once on PlayStation, once on PC, if you're curious how that happened. So I've already played those two games 4 times, so I already know the stuff in the new game is stuff I'm going to like. So it makes perfect sense to me that the demo, the trailer, or the gameplay, whatever they were showing off, was the new stuff. The fights on the water, the black suit stuff, all that kind of deal. What was different about the new game? That's what I think most people don't understand when they're criticizing that trailer. It's difficult to put my finger on exactly what was wrong. Although having the same setting with graphics that don't seem much improved while you're watching a streaming video at 30 frames per second. I mean, it's compressed and everything. Why do people not get this yet? You can't judge the clarity and crispness of a game unless you've got the game in front of you, or you're watching an especially high resolution, high bitrate video on a VOD, video on demand, versus the streaming stuff that they were showing off. And it's just... I'm sure if you put the two games next to each other, the new one would look better, but looking at it as it was presented, it just looked the same. I have zero problems with that. I don't need my games to keep getting prettier and prettier and prettier at the expense of anything else. Spider-Man and Miles Morales already looked fantastic, especially if you're running on PC at 4K, native 4K, not the fake 4K that PlayStation does, with ray tracing turned on, real ray tracing, not the iffy halfway ray tracing that PlayStation does. It looks great. I don't need them to push that envelope any further. It's fine. Concentrate on everything else. Spend your money and your time on everything else about the game that's good. It looks fine. In fact, it looks better than fine. It looks great. Another problem was how it tackled the whole black suit storyline, with Peter Parker obviously succumbing to its bad influence. Editors, please, for the love of God, fix his grammar. The problem is that story angle is identical to the Spider-Man 3 movie. You don't know that. You've seen a little bit of a clip. You don't know it's identical to what they did in the Maguire movie. And that didn't take it seriously at all. No, it didn't. That was a terrible movie. But, with the whole Bully Maguire thing, I think the game needed to find a different angle, and all than just having Pete act all angry with a gravelly voice. It came across as kind of silly, especially as they would have been doing their best to try and avoid the Sam Raimi comparisons. Hi, child who wrote this. Did you know that the black suit, the symbiote suit, the Venom symbiote, existed 3 decades more before the Sam Raimi movie came along and showed everyone the black suit stuff? And in fact, the Sam Raimi movie changed a whole bunch of stuff about the history and function of that suit to begin with. It's not a very faithful adaptation to a lot of what came before it or has come since about the Venom symbiote. I would put very large amounts of money on the game following a little bit more closer to some of the comic book storylines instead. And as for the gravelly voice and being cranky all the time, that's part and parcel of the Venom symbiote as well. It ramps up all these aggressive feelings. That's one of the fantastic things about the story of the black suit is Peter Parker, the Boy Scout, the heart of gold, always trying to do what's right, the everyman's superhero, fighting off these aggressive impulses, these murderous impulses at times. And that's a test of character for him. That's part of the Peter Parker story, these kinds of tests of characters. That's what the Venom suit was, well, no, the symbiote suit originally, it wasn't called Venom originally, was designed to do. And then you give that to someone who will not resist those darker impulses, those aggressive impulses. You give it to someone like Eddie Brock, who's harboring a lot of resentment, and you see what happens. Well, what if Peter did not resist? This could have been his future. And then, there's a whole thing that unfolds from that about the journey of the Venom symbiote, everything from being an out-and-out murderous psychopath serial killer, and then, spawning the likes of Carnage, and all the way through to being kind of an anti-hero, or even being employed by the military at times in the comics. And it's just, so no, I don't think it's worthwhile comparing it to the Raimi movies just because that's what you saw when you were growing up, you fetus. The other big issue, and I think this is the one most people agree on, is that the whole bit towards the end, the one with the chase with the lizard, look very non-interactive, almost like a QTE cutscene. The other games had that as well. Remember the helicopter chase and stuff like that, and webbing up the falling cranes and all that sort of stuff? That's this kind of sequence is part of the Spider-Man games. There's only like 3 or 4 of them in each game, and they're often big cinematic set pieces, and QTE style stuff is one really good way to do that kind of cinematic set piece, because you have to control the action and when stuff happens and the camera angles, and you can time it to the music and the swell of the emotion. And if you just let a player do whatever, you don't get those big cinematic moments usually. You can accidentally create them sometimes in some games. Just Cause 3 was fantastic for that. That sandpit of a game, it was just so much fun to do all kinds of chaos, and you get accidental cinematic moments in that. But if you're doing a Spider-Man game in the style of the Insomniac Spider-Man games, you need the occasional QTE. As much as I don't like QTEs, and I'll usually go into the options and say, hey, I'll choose the option and say, just let me hold down the button instead of going because I hate that tappy shit. I will choose the option to make the QTEs less annoying, but I like having them there because, again, they are a cinematic punch. They are a punctuation point in the telling of the story in a dramatic moment. Maybe whoever edited together the whole preview wasn't doing a very good job. Okay. That's a long bow to draw. And that does happen. But for me, it was obvious that Spider-Man 2's preview was far less impressive than Starfield's. Well, for a start, Spider-Man 2 preview was just a little, again, showing off what's new thing, whereas Starfield had like a full hour of here's all the stuff we're prepared to tell you about right now, going through all the different mechanics in the game, because none of it you've seen before. I mean, it bounces off the likes of Skyrim and Fallout, of course, but it's not as simple as going, hey, this is what's different from Starfield to Fallout. It's based on the same bones, but all the flesh is brand new. So they've got to walk you through. This is how this system works. This is what we're doing here. This is how shipbuilding and ship modification works. Hey, if you want to engage with a story, you can do this. You've got a bunch of different life paths. You can do this. You've got a bunch of different choices here. This is a proper RPG. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want. And these are the kinds of weapons you can use. And this is what happens when you do this. And this is it's a very different kind of presentation. It's directly comparing the two to see which one is better is kind of foolish, because there were very different intents behind those presentations. You could tell that in the aftermath too. Nobody was talking positively about Spider-Man 2. Well, gamers like to whinge anyway, so If they were talking about it at all, the days after PlayStation Showcase, and yet Starfield discussions are still going on, and there hasn't been any kind of backlash either. That's not true. That's not even close to true. Gamers are going to gamer, and if they're going to find stuff to whine about, they're going to find stuff to whine about. You betcha there's been backlash. In terms of positive reaction on the day and lasting impact, I think it's pretty obvious that Starfield has beaten Spider-Man 2 and hasn't really been a contest, which is kind of surprising. Whether you can say they're not similar games, and they're not, but they are the biggest games this year of the two rival consoles. That's fair enough to say. Not the first bit, the second bit, though. They are the biggest, exclusive games. And Xbox, the underdog, is well ahead of Sony in terms of buzz. There's no point in trying to compare sales figures because Starfield is on Game Pass. You can still compare player numbers if they publish them. So even judging games by how many people end up playing each of them, Starfield will probably win. So where are you setting the goalposts exactly? If you can't compare the games directly because they're different kinds of games, and you can't compare the player bases, where are your goalposts? What is the market? What makes it better? That's what this is missing. It's just Starfield's going to be better. Okay, how? In which way? In what respect? By what criteria? Because if you're going to compare two things, you need to measure it against criteria. If you're going to compare apples to oranges, what are you comparing them? Are you comparing their color? Are you comparing their taste, their texture? Are you comparing how easy they are to grow en masse in a farming situation? Are you comparing how good they are for making pies? I think apple pies are better than orange pies. However, if it's half time at a game of footy, you're cramming an orange slice in your mouth, not an apple slice, aren't you? So I don't know why I brought up a football analogy. I'm obviously not a sporty guy, but as soon as anytime I talk about oranges, you have those flashbacks to childhood. Half time at the footy match, someone comes out with a big fucking plate of orange segments. She's oh, gob. I don't know why that's a thing. I like oranges though, so it's fine. Starfield will probably win. I bet this will sell a lot of Xboxes this Christmas too. I'm not sure whether Starfield is going to be a hardware seller. I'm sure some will. I kind of feel like we were talking about a bit before, any hardcore PlayStation user, and they're so hardcore about this, they're probably more likely to invest or upgrade their PC setup, buy a gaming PC or upgrade their existing PC, or try and play it on their low-end laptop or something, rather than dirty themselves with buying the, opposite tribe's hardware, because PlayStation fans are weird about that stuff, man. I mean, fanboys in general are, but PlayStation fans especially are really, really tribal. So, yeah, I don't know how many people who don't already own Xboxes are going to be buying Xboxes for Starfield. I don't know if it's going to be a lot, but we'll see. In every measurable way, Starfield has already beaten Spider-Man 2, and I think it will continue to do so well into the winter and beyond. By reader, Zane with an X. Zane with an X. So what do you guys reckon about all that fluff? I think that was a very badly written, I mean, not just from a grammatical point of view, but he didn't think it through at all. Nothing is deconstructed. I don't think he even reread it before he submitted it. It was just like train of thought, blurp, and it belongs on Reddit. It's the kind of thing just belongs on Reddit that would get either downvoted or upvoted to oblivion depending on what the general mood of that particular subreddit is, and there'll be a long chain of people just screaming at him about all the dumb things he said, and other people go, no, actually he's right, and Xbox fanboys and PlayStation fanboys, blah, blah, blah. It's a very good bait article because it doesn't say anything of worth, but it does say a lot of things you can go, actually, which is why I read it to you guys. Now then, personally speaking, as I promised in the opening of the video, let's close off with why I'm more excited about Starfield. Despite the fact that I know for a fact, like 98% sure, that Insomniac are very unlikely to screw up Spider-Man 2 to a degree that I will not enjoy the hell out of it. Because again, I've played the last two games 4 times over. I'm really looking forward to it. I can't imagine a situation where they screw it up so badly it becomes a bad game. Maybe it's not as good as the original. Maybe it's even slightly worse than Miles Morales, which was really, really good in some areas and really, really in others. Maybe it's equal to Miles Morales. I don't know. And that's the point. I've played it before. I know I'm going to enjoy it. The only mystery about it is where exactly it sits in the balance of the 3 games that we will now have for that Spider-Man series. Whereas Starfield is entirely new meat. familiar bones, Bethesda bones, which means it's going to be janky and broken in a lot of hilarious ways. Maybe some brand new hilarious ways, considering they've upgraded the engine and they've replaced the animation engine, they've redone all the lighting and the physics engine that they've fixed up, all the usual problems we had with the other Bethesda games. They've made a point to say, oh, we've fixed that. We've worked on that. The game engine, we've overhauled it. But it is still Bethesda. And if Bethesda were capable of fixing the mistakes, Fallout 76 would not be the misery it is. So Starfield is interesting for that, way more interesting than Spider-Man, because the balance of did they make a work of art? Did they screw it up massively? And it's going to be a meme for years. That scale is currently... Nobody knows where that's going to land right now. And that's interesting and that's exciting. The second part is, it is a brand new adventure to have. It's the one thing Bethesda do well is world building and storytelling and characters, all that sort of stuff. All the other broken crap in all their other games, even the Wastelanders update, the character stuff they brought in with some of that was really interesting still. Didn't help the game much, but point is, they went back to doing the stuff they did well and it was okay. So that's all exciting. Starfield is more exciting in every angle you look at it from. Brand new property, new Bethesda game, immense universe full of hundreds of thousands of planets or whatever it is, most of which will be procedural generated empty planets, so who cares? But there's new systems there to explore, new builds to try, because it is a full-on RPG. And so unlike Spider-Man, where you can make some choices about what equipment you want to do first, but there's no variation in build, really. Well, the suits, kind of the special powers, yeah, but that's not real RPG. Well, Starfield is a real RPG, so there's so much more potential for their exploration, not just the exploration of the world, but of the way to build characters, the way to play the game, the way to interact with the game. There's way more meat on those bones than there is for Spider-Man, even though I know Spider-Man's going to be good. Starfield is more enticing because if it is good, it could be amazing. If it is bad, it's going to be hilarious. But there's the joy of exploring that journey to find out how good or bad it is and find out what the good bits are, what the bad bits are. Cyberpunk is another good example. That released, as we all know, in a horrible way, but I really enjoyed my first playthrough of that, the 1.0 version. All the broken stuff kept getting in the way of things, but I could see underneath all that broken stuff, there was a really, really excellent world and stories and characters, and I got engaged with that. So on my subsequent replays, I've replayed it twice through now. I'm just about to do a fourth one before the DLC launches. And I've played through different ways, I've made different builds, and I've enjoyed it every time. And the changes they've made and the different content they've added to it over time as they've fixed it has been exciting to watch that happen. So even if Starfield launches typically Bethesda broken, the process of them trying to fix that is still interesting. So the amount of interest, the amount of fascination, the amount of time I'm expecting to spend with Starfield is so much more than Spider-Man. I know for a fact I'm going to spend, 20 to 40 hours with Spider-Man, playing through the thing, doing all the side missions, just like I did with the other games. Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4, when I played it on the Pro. First PlayStation game I ever bothered to Platinum Trophy. I don't care about trophies at all, but I Platinum Spider-Man because it gave me more things to do, more things to chase, more reason to pick up the controller and play. Well, today I'm going to work on this achievement. And, there are very few games that do that to me. Spider-Man is one of them. So, that's where I sit. Starfield is more exciting. I don't know whether it beats Spider-Man as a game, as a piece of entertainment, as something worth your whatever asking price you're asking for these days for games, because I'm... But where do you stand? What do you reckon? I've waffled for a very long... This was supposed to be like an 8-minute video. But I guess it's good it's going to be a long video, because hopefully when I get my internet on today, I will have the bandwidth to actually upload stuff for a change. I'm back, baby! Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to the patrons. Scrolling up above there, and I will catch you next time. I am Blunty. I think I did that backwards. Doesn't matter. First day back. Not quite a holiday, but still rusty.